Hey everybody, so today I wanted to make a video and talk about the ego, break it down a little bit more specifically, and bridge that into the role that the ego plays when it comes to making change in our life. So in my book, I define the ego as essentially the collection of our senses. So how we view reality from the thinking mind, the feeling body, belief systems, they all culminate into the filter by which we look at life. So everyone's ego, essentially a frame of reference, is going to be slightly skewed based on the experiences they've had to this point in time. And I've broken this down before. So for example, if someone had a really bad childhood and their father was really mean to them, let's say you're a female and your dad was just awful to you, you're going to have this view of men that's not as healthy as if your dad was really good to you, okay? So that's going to skew your perception. Now, when we're born, we're basically like this clean slate. We don't have subjectivity just yet. Like, we're forming that subjectivity. Really, in the beginning, we're just completely at the whim of those around us to give us cues as to who we are and where we stand. The problem with this is that because babies are so egocentric, they make everything about them. So what happens is we're all kind of screwed as kids, right? We take in information and we take it in wrong most of the time. So if mommy's in a bad mood, we just think mommy doesn't love us. And what happens as a result of this is we develop core beliefs that end up kind of driving our life in a direction that's not really healthy. And then as adults, we kind of go, okay, why isn't my life turning out the way I want? So we end up running into these impasses where we're like, okay, I don't get it. Like, I'm trying to create this reality. I'm trying to make money, or I'm trying to have a healthy relationship, and I have not really been successful at that. So you end up kind of running up against essentially you run up against the core beliefs and the interface by which you've created your own reality. Now, here's the thing. When we go to make change, we're like, okay, I'm not going to do it this way anymore. I'm going to try it differently. And then what happens is this, as soon as we make that declaration, that decision to do things differently, chaos ensues. Now, sometimes it can be in the form of just a straight up mess. Everything around you falls apart. Everyone around you is against you. Sometimes it happens in the form of no action. So basically, we end up getting no support, no signs, no clues, no evidence that, like, okay, you know, like, this is going to work in my favor. For example, if you decided that you were going to go get a job, you're like, I'm tired of not working, I'm going to go get a job. And you make that declaration, and then all of a sudden, like, no one will hire you, okay? So that would be like the absence of things working into your favor. Either way, when we make that declaration, what we're doing is we're disrupting the system. So you, as a human being, you have like an operating system by which you now have this homeostasis. Some people it's really healthy, some people it's really crappy. But it's your homeostasis. And you've just kind of learned to operate by a certain set of rules, right? Governed by how you see reality. So when you go to make that declaration, you're now disrupting the system or disrupting that equilibrium. And that's why things get really chaotic. Now, sometimes it's your own mind saying, who do you think you are? You're too stupid. You can't get that, whatever that might be. Sometimes it's your feeling, right? You're like, all of a sudden you feel naked. You're like, oh, but if I let people love me, then I have to be a different person, and that's really uncomfortable, and I'm not going there, right? So the cues that we get as a result of that change sometimes is purely internal, and then sometimes it's totally external. And like I said, you go to make a shift, and now all of a sudden you're fighting with everyone, and they're antagonizing you, and you're like, why isn't this peaceful? Like, I just wanted to be a better person. And now that I want to be a better person and actually have more peace in my life, everyone's against me. So again, it's a system disruption. But the ego isn't just like the thoughts in our head, which most of us have come to believe ego is really just kind of this thing that orbits around our brain and argues with us. But ego is kind of our experience in its entirety. So as we're seeing what appears to be external opposition, what it really is, it's the internal software kicking up anything it possibly can to draw to you examples as to why we need to go back to the old operating system. So it's literally trying to trap you back. And this is why a lot of people don't actually make big change, because they look at the chaos as the result instead of seeing the chaos as the process. So, you know, it's if you are trying to make shifts in your life and it's gotten really messy, I promise you, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. You are really and truly, what you're doing is you're uprooting old core beliefs that don't serve you anymore. And what appears to be an external power struggle is actually an internal power struggle just being mirrored on the external. Because now everything is going against your new situation, right? And it's trying to pull you back to the old identity. No, you're not good enough to leave this marriage. No, you're not good enough to make more money. No, you're not good enough to lose weight and have the body that you want. No, you're not worth it, right? So things start to kick up in reality to pull you back, okay? Like I said, what appears to be an external, not objection, but like an external problem is really just you up against your own like interface being projected on the external. So I want you to understand the difference. Like, life is not against you when you go to make shifts. Life is showing you what you need to unlearn and undo so you can get back to that blank canvas, okay? Anytime we try to uproot a really ugly core belief, and like I said, go back to who you were as a child. If you couldn't please dad and your core belief was, I'll never be good enough, it'll never be right, it'll never be enough, that's the core belief that you're carrying around with you, that you're now like going, okay, I don't want to take this with me. And as you uproot that core belief, again, resistance will be the game. Don't fall for it, okay? It's just you trying to maneuver out of the old operating system. It's not the end result. It's not like, oh, this is what happens if I change. This is what happens if everybody changes, okay? And this is the journey to getting back to who you really are, which is a divine, loving, amazing individual. But it's easy to see it from the external and go, yeah, see, here's the evidence. See, when I go to make change, everyone hates me. Of course they do. Because it was easier for them to be, you know, for you to be who you were, because then they don't have to adjust. But if you change, guess what? Everything around you has to now shift to be a part of that new equilibrium and that new operating system. So my point basically is that, like, if you're trying to make changes in your life, just understand that what you're up against, while it appears to be on the external, is really a power struggle with the internal. You are now challenging your own core beliefs, which, you know, every part of your being is energy. It's alive and it's well, and it doesn't want to make a shift with you, okay? And to expect that resistance, but to not expect it in a way where it's like, oh, I gotta drudge through this, but to embrace it in a way where it's like, okay, this is just me clearing out me. So if you were to detox your physical body, it would get a lot worse before it got better. So think of that, if you need an analogy, when it comes to cleaning out your own brain patterns and your own core beliefs, so you can get back to being a more pure individual, like the essence of who you really were when you were born. And from there, you can then create what you really want. We can't really move to creation in our life if we're stuck in our old patterns, though. Like, if we're just the operating system from an unconscious level, doing the same thing, the same way, with, you know, getting the same results, we're not in charge of our lives. We are just submitting to an old set of standards. So we take our power back by challenging that operating system, by challenging the status quo within us and saying, I'm not doing it this way anymore, everything will eventually adapt, I promise. Yes, it gets worse before it gets better, but this is the way. There is a risk, and really and truly, the only thing you're giving up is what no longer serves you. So remember that when we're talking about ego as well, that the ego is independent of, like, let me rephrase that. Our egos are dependent on the experiences that we've had to this point, and they're mobile. We can shift them, we can change them. You know, the filter by which you see and experience reality is not static. It absolutely can change. And you can actually even redefine your own intuition, which I've done. Like I've experienced my own intuition actually shifts, like what I'm drawn to and what I tend to pull in and feel like I'm navigating to and from has shifted as a result of me completely gutting the operating system. So what once felt familiar and safe no longer does. It's a total threat. It's not healthy, but that takes time. Anyway, I hope this video was helpful. If anyone is trying to make change in their life and you are struggling, feel free to reach out to me. If you liked this video, like, subscribe, share it. You know, this is what I do for a living. More than anything is I help people find the pieces that they're not able to identify with because they're still caught in their own blind spot, and then help them navigate the unlearning process so they can create what they want eventually. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Have a phenomenal day. Bye.